Leading our coverage tonight, foreign correspondent Trey Yingst, who is live in Tel Aviv. Trey, it seems to me that we have what U.S. officials are saying was an Israeli attack. Israeli officials saying very little, if anything, at the moment. Iran saying much ado about nothing. If there was anything, we beat it back. What is the point of all of this? Lay it out if you can for our viewers, Trey.
Yeah, hey, Jonathan, good evening. A U.S. military source confirming to Fox News that Israel conducted a limited strike overnight inside Iran's Isfahan province, trying to target Iran and send a message to the regime in Tehran that direct attacks against Israel will not go unanswered. The strike overnight gives Iran an exit ramp in escalating tension with Israel, and it also allows the Israelis to send that message directly to Iranian leadership. Now, Iranian state media already trying to save face, saying that the explosions heard in this province were from the country's air defense systems and that no missile attack occurred. That does not match with U.S. officials who say that Israel conducted something that was of limited scope and again meant to send a message following the attack last weekend that involved hundreds of Iranian drones and missiles targeting Israeli territory. Now, as you mentioned, as this attack was unfolding, some civilian flights that were headed toward the Iranian capital diverted and headed back toward the Gulf. We also know that Iran's largest airport in Tehran temporarily closed as the incident was taking place. And the Iranians say there is no meeting taking place among their officials, as was initially being reported. As for the Israelis, we do understand over the last hour, Israel's Homefront Command made an assessment. This is the organization involved with delivering messages to the Israeli civilian population. And they say there is no change in the security situation or posture for Israeli civilians. So there is certainly a sense of calm here in Israel and an expectation that Iran will not immediately retaliate following this Israeli strike overnight inside Iran. Jonathan?
So, Trey, do you get the sense that this is, if you like, an escalation to de-escalate? The Israelis saying we are hitting back, but in a way that allows the Iranians to say we did our job, we kept you, the Iranian people, safe, we beat back the Israeli attack. And does this bring an end to the current round of tit for tat, do you believe, Trey?
Absolutely. It gives both sides the ability to stop the rising tension across the region following that Iranian attack that, remember, was a response following an Israeli strike at the beginning of the month that killed Mohammad Sahadi, a top Iranian general in Damascus, Syria. And so this is really an opportunity for the region to at least pause this tit for tat, the back and forth between Israel and Iran. And I can tell you, having been in a variety of briefings over the past week, Israeli officials here in Tel Aviv were very clear there would have to be a response to the Iranian attack last weekend that targeted not only Israel's nuclear facilities, but also some population centers, sending more than 1 million people to bomb shelters as sirens were sounding in locations across this country. But that response, we understood from the very beginning, would likely be limited in order to avoid a broader regional conflict. And that's exactly what we saw overnight. Those Israeli officials also indicated that their forces would remain on high alert, understanding that the situation is unpredictable and we are currently still in uncharted territory. Iran has a variety of proxies across the Middle East, including the Houthis in Yemen and Iran-backed Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, not to mention Iranian proxies in places like Iraq and Syria, these Shia militias that also have missile and drone capabilities. And so as things stand right now, both sides can step back from the situation and at least temporarily say that this round is over. It's unclear if there will be continued escalation by the Iranians, understanding that they lost 7 members of their IRGC at the beginning of this month in the Israeli strike in Damascus, Syria. But as you can hear overhead, the civilian airspace in Israel remains open. We do understand Iran's civilian airspace will open in a matter of hours around the Iranian capital of Tehran, and things are largely back to normal in both locations as this attack took place overnight with one specific thing in mind: to avoid a broader regional war. Jonathan?
And Trey, do you believe that the Israeli people will support the action that Israel has apparently carried out overnight? And will they believe that it was enough and sent a strong enough message to the Iranian leadership?
Absolutely. This is a country that's been at war for more than 6 months. They're approaching the 200-day mark of the war inside Gaza. And remember, after the October 7th massacre, Black Saturday, Hezbollah got directly involved in this conflict, and they've been firing on northern Israel ever since. And so the Israeli people understand the threats that come from Iran and its proxies, and they also understand that their government and military often operates through a policy of strategic patience. Israel understands the real threat that Iran's ballistic missile program poses to the country, but also the real threat that Iran's nuclear program poses to this country. Iranian officials have not been shy to note that they are pursuing an advanced nuclear program. They've been continuing their enrichment of high-grade uranium toward a nuclear weapon. And the firing of ballistic missiles last weekend sends a message to Israel that Iran has the capability to reach this country with advanced Shahab ballistic missiles, and those missiles can be outfitted with nuclear warheads once Iran gets the capability. And so there are real serious implications to what has taken place this month in the Middle East, and a real possibility of further escalation. But as it relates to the strike last night, at least for now, the incident appears to be over. Jonathan.
And Trey, if I can keep you for one more question. I know you've been working many, many hours overnight, but I'm just wondering, the mood of the Israeli people, obviously since October 7th, everything changed. Their world entirely changed. I believe it would be fair to say that the Israeli people were pretty much united in backing, at least at the very beginning, and for most of the last 6 months or so, the war in Gaza and the stated Israeli aim of destroying Hamas completely. But you get that, and now on top of that, you get this unprecedented attack over the weekend from Iran. How under siege do the Israeli people feel right now, Trey?
So the Israelis are looking very closely at statements from the Americans. They see President Biden and his cabinet talking about what's taking place on the ground inside Gaza as the war continues and the civilian casualty rate continues to rise. And it was remarkable to see the shift in tone from President Biden last week, because there were plans for Israel to enter Gaza's southernmost city of Rafah to go after remaining Hamas fighters there, and also to look for the hostages. Remember, there are still 130 plus people unaccounted for inside Gaza that were taken there on October 7th. And so Israel has remained focused on the hostages and the efforts of their army inside Gaza, understanding that the Americans have made very specific statements about aid to Israel, saying just last week that it is conditional based on Israel's military activity inside Gaza. The tone very quickly shifted, though, from President Biden and the administration when their intelligence pointed to the real threat from Iran, understanding that the Iranians were planning a massive attack against Israel in response to that strike in Damascus, Syria, that killed that top Iranian general. And so it's an incredibly complex situation across the Middle East as we speak. There are a lot of moving parts, real serious threats from Iranian proxies across the region. And Israel understands that the most immediate threat is actually not from Gaza, from groups like Hamas or Islamic Jihad. It's not from Iran, understanding that they do have advanced air defense capabilities that were on display just last weekend. But the real threat comes from Hezbollah, this Lebanese militant group that has more than 100,000 missiles and rockets all aimed at Israel, and they have precision-guided components that were provided to them by the Iranians. Jonathan.
Yeah, it seems very significant that for the moment, at least in this latest round, Hezbollah has largely stayed out of it over the past week or so. We'll see if that holds. Trey, thank you so much for your, as always, unmatched reporting. We'll be back to you later. The White House, as you would imagine, has been keeping a close eye